Welcome to the shed. Okay, so today we are joined by Devon, aka the Black Airbender. He is the pioneer of alchemy breathwork and is a breatharian, which I'm sure we all want to find out how that is possible. So Devon, welcome to the shed, and thank you for today and the interview that we're going to take place. And could you just elaborate on sort of the many talents you have, but sort of the journey and how it started of this sort of self-discovery and lifestyle that you now have?
Yeah, so this mainly started with me losing everything to a business partner and tapping into the power of the breath. I met my mentor at the time, and the number one thing when I got into my first ever breath session was how was I breathing, leading down to that downward spiral. And then from there, I took everything I learned and meshed it with the ideology or the perception that everything is based off the human body in terms of the technologies that we use. And thus, I created something what I call alchemy breathwork, which is more of a parasympathetic style of breathing that you can utilize in your daily life, compiling mental breathwork, quantum mechanics, and biophotonic resonance all into one.
Okay. So if we, I think the best sort of, because to some people, you know, especially probably myself around 3 years ago, I wouldn't have understood anything you just said at all. You know, even being connected to the body or connected to the breath, I think a lot of people are still walking around with the body being a sort of robot that they're not really connected with the mind. So, I mean, just to go back a little bit, what is sort of breath to you, as a simple question?
Oh, what is breath to me?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny you said that. I literally have a track coming out in the question, what is breath to me? So
Yeah.
breath to me it represents contrast. It also represents spirit. It also represents energetic, and wherever the breath goes, the mind goes. Wherever the mind goes, the body follows. And wherever the body goes, that's what attracts or compiles and manifests your everyday reality.
Yeah.
So the breath to me represents it's its own entity, if you will, in itself. It's its own being. It's a life force. That's what it also represents as well. It represents the all that is, because the breath has touched and seen everything all into one. It comes right back to you. It takes 4 to 5 days going around the world in terms of aerodynamics and coming right back to you. So another form or another characteristic, the breath is also magnetic. It's a magnetic force. So in the world of magnetism, if we're all focused, you know, there's some people that focus on law of attraction. Well, there it is. That's a magnetic force that you can control or harmonize. I like to say, if you don't want to focus too much on the control, at least harmonize and focus on the harmony there, thus making your life in more harmonic balance.
Okay, so just trying to absorb that. So in the context of looking at it as oxygen, you know, saying it's magnetized or it's its own sort of being, you know, that can be taken as like substances or anything else that you're absorbing and taking out. So you would say that oxygen is its kind of its own living force.
Well, it's not just oxygen in the air. There's also nitrogen and all the other gases in that aspect.
Okay. And what's the difference between I mean, mental breath work is a fairly obvious name, but mental breath work to color breath work to quantum breath work?
Yeah, so the main difference is it's diving in, like I said, the characteristics of the breath itself. You know, I truly trust it's not just the breath keeping us alive, but I feel like it's also the mechanics of the breath itself that we can't even see or even humanly fathom to the fullest degree. And like I said, the aspect of contrast, right? So down with the mental breath work, something like echo breathing, like on your exhales, you would see whatever object, even yourself, if you want. On your exhales, you multiply into the multiple versions of that one object. And then on the inhale, everything comes back into one. So if we look at uh, before any type of religion came to be, there was something called animism, where our ancient ancestors could perceive everything as being quote unquote alive. And then Western science comes years later saying that there's no such thing as a physical object. Everything is moving at a molecular level, at a molecular rate. Thus, everything is what? Somewhat alive. Everything is quote unquote animated, if you will, hence the word animism. So that is what the breath represents. It represents contrast in the sense of moving energy, right? So with that being said, everything is somewhat breathing. Everything has contrast since it's not fully stagnant. So when you're harmonizing the breath and whatever object or yourself, when you're harmonizing it into one, you feel the sense of expansion in terms of awareness, mental capacity, and overall well-being to thus handle yourself. And I like to say the external world will rule the way you breathe until you rule the way you breathe. And now we dive a little bit into the mental breath work, a little bit in that aspect. Now, in the sense of colors, when the colors is universal, no matter where you go, even if you're quote unquote colorblind, you at least see somewhat of a shade. Or even if you are completely blind in general, then we dive into auditory breath work, where you're harmonizing the breath and color. And I'll give you one instance. I love sharing this one client's experience where he had to live with his spouse, that they're technically separated, but they share a child. So he had literally no choice but to, live there at the time. And she's the type of person to get him riled up, and to the point where cops would have to come and intervene. So 2 weeks we're working on specifically color breathing. And like I said, colors is universal. So it was consistency in terms of different exercises with the color, using different breath patterns with particular colors. Thus, you're creating a library in your subconscious mind when you interact with colors and building more of a harmonious relationship. So this woman literally tries to antagonize him and try to get him angry. And before he could even say a word, he starts crying because all he could think of was the colors she was wearing. And at that specific moment in time, she also realized the trauma she was also perpetuating and always projecting at that time as well. So that's how powerful colors is. I mean, the sun has a whole spectrum of colors and frequency and rainbows, etc. But different colors gives us different sense of mood, or different colors also have different relationships with our childhood trauma, what we went through as a kid, the certain colors we would see often as a kid, and certain memories that would be attached to those colors. So the aspect of color breathing in itself is so powerful. And yeah, in the sense of quantum also resides in the aspect of the whole mental breath work, in that aspect as well.
Okay. I've done breath work for a while now, but with colors. I wasn't sure of color breathing or how to even do that. But when I meditate, I find when I'm completely in a good space, really, then and not really thinking about anything, that's when colors come up in my mind, and it's a lot of time, trying to distinguish what they mean or how I can relate to them. How would you say anyone would go about that if they're meditating and then say blue is coming up? Because I was looking at sort of the chakra colors or trying to translate it with that kind of energy in my body, but I wasn't too sure. And then sometimes I go through a phase where I just don't see any, and I'm like, where have they gone?
So now we're talking about the internal journey, and it's a beautiful thing to utilize colors with a marker, if you will. It's like reading a book. You have your bookmark. So a beautiful way to take an internal journey in that sense. Let's say, again, you had that meditation and you remembered a specific color or colors or a range of colors. So then the next meditation you go into, or the next transcendental meditation, or however you want to describe it, or breathwork practice, and you close your eyes, think of that exact same color again. Because whatever is popping up subconsciously that you're not really, pushing forward, it's giving you feedback. It's giving you, I call it biofeedback in a sense. It's giving you biofeedback, or it's showing you what particular areas of the body that either needs attention, or you're literally just diving into in terms of the self journey. So when you dive into the next meditation and you dive into that color, that specific color, and you think of that color and you just get into the trance, however you want to describe it, in that zone, you go deeper and deeper and deeper to what that specific thing or feeling is trying to tell you internally. And you literally take a deeper journey. It's like you're starting from where you left off, because what is time? Time is more of a man-made concept, and the subconscious mind doesn't perceive the same way as the conscious mind does when it comes to time. So time is somewhat irrelevant. You're just like I said, you're literally picking up where you left off. And that's how you go deeper in the sense of meditation. That's why even some monks, you see some monks wearing the orange robe. They do that on purpose, because it keeps them into a certain trance of meditation in their walking life as well too, in terms of that energy. So another thing, when you dive deeper into that same exact color, it might change into another color, or some people even have deeper visions and stuff of that nature. So that's a powerful way of going about utilizing color in that manner when it comes to focusing on the internal.
So basically just go again and hunt for it or try to visualize it again. So I mean, do you think you're based in Miami, right? I think that's where. Yeah. So I mean, in London, or the Western world, do you think that we've had this kind of bit of explosive after sort of lockdown and everything else? The spiritual world has kind of taken on form a lot more, and we've got things on normal TV like Wim Hof doing ice baths, and so it's becoming more mainstream. How do you think connecting the breath with the Western world will help sort of people's day to day with their stresses of work and everything like that?
Yeah, so that's moving forward of why I even thought about even coming back to like the public realm and being on social media, etc.
Yeah.
I designed alchemy breathwork in the sense of utilizing it in your everyday life beyond the sit down sessions. So literally becoming, I like to say, a walking glitch in the matrix, if you will. But it's also teaching people how to utilize a specific muscle when it comes to literally the everyday stresses in life. Instead of complaining, why not focus on the solution, right? And even though some problems are right in front of your face, it's great to focus on the solution, even when you're going through those problems, because it's just going to make you can only become stronger out of it when you do focus on the solutions while you are dealing with the problems. In that regard, it's only going to make you stronger. So it's so important to utilize the breath in this manner, in this way, when we're interacting with people. Even the CIA, they use something called mirror breathing. And mirror breathing is beautiful if you even deal with social anxiety in general, or you deal with people around you that are very sporadic when they speak, or they don't even know how to control themselves in a certain manner. So what you would do is, while they're talking, that would be your exhale. And whenever they inhale, you inhale with them. And you do that a couple times. The inhale, you do that a couple times and a couple breaths. And then you get to the point where you find a rhythm. And then you realize when they're talking, you want to go longer on your exhales. Then they inhale, longer on your exhales. They're still talking, then they inhale, and then longer on your exhales. You're going to start to realize how their bodies start to shift start to calm down, regulate, because their mirror neurons is reading your calmness, your energetic resonance, because everybody's bodies, they love homeostasis. Nobody wants to be in fight or flight ever, really. That's not where home is. Keyword home, homeostasis. Rest, digest, heal, right? So when the person is at a equilibrium in terms of their frequency, wavelength of more in the parasympathetic state, it's going to affect others, including your jobs, as well as going to be more stress-free, no matter where you go in that aspect, when you learn how to control your breath, thus allowing you to also have influence in your environment, even though you may not perceive, even though there might be a boss above you, etc. But still, if you have influence in terms of your energetic resonance, it's going to transmute or transform you for the better in terms of either a better paying job or just a better environment inside the workplace. And who doesn't want that? So it all boils down back to you, in terms of responsibility, your ability to be responsible for your abilities. And one of them is breathing, because breathing affects everyone around you. That's why I also came up with subliminal breathwork music, because it's like you're breathing as multiple people when you're listening to either me or a group of people being recorded breathing in a deeper state of resonance subliminally. It's going to affect your mirror neurons to then breathe deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yeah, that is one of the I use one of Wim Hof's breath work, and it is sound as well as breath through all of it. But I do it by myself as well. Sometimes I'm not be connected to headphones or anything else. What do you think is the connection between breathwork and certain frequencies or certain sounds? I know there's obviously different states of frequency, like gamma, alpha, theta. So I use a sort of app that has different frequencies that I put on. But what's the connection with, or how does it work really with breath and frequencies, and to someone that wouldn't know? A bit like me, to be honest.
Yeah. So breath and frequency, they go hand in hand. Like when they did studies on me in path waves in Miami, I did different styles of breathing, and you can see high points of gamma being pinpointed, high points of theta during different styles of breathing. And there are even points where I'm just breathing normally and just tapping into the mental breath work, and you could see high fluctuations of theta starts to rise. And they go like, what are you doing differently? We just still hear the same normal breathing. I'm breathing into other parts subconsciously, diving deeper and giving a deeper experience with the breath. Think about it like this: you're literally breathing into different parts of the mind, and that's the type of muscle I'm talking about when it comes to mental breath work, and that have so much to do with frequency in itself. Now, if you want to be more physical in the aspect of frequency, you can do something like I call frequency breathing, creating like a pulse. And one of my favorites is the 3-6-9 method, where you can do a regular inhale and a 3-part breath, and then a regular inhale, then a 6-part breath, and then a regular inhale, then a 9. And then 9. Yeah. So you can even do it with 528 hertz or whatever different frequencies you'd like, but you would also do it on repeat, on a repeating pattern.
Is 369 the numbers that Tesla said to understand the universe? Are they the right numbers?
Yes, frequency and vibration.
Yeah.
Those are one of the sets for sure.
Yeah, and so in the difference of like 540, but I know the types of ones I have are usually hemisync based. So you'd have one frequency on this ear and one frequency on this ear. Is that so it plays the same frequency with, it matches in itself? Because if it's 540, is that the best sort of meditational, what I'm trying to get at is how do you know which frequencies for which state, for where you are, to relax, to concentrate, to focus, these different states or different frequencies?
So yeah, there are different points of, there's a whole frequency tablet or table, if you will, of what frequencies do in terms of, there's even frequency for the spine, there's different frequencies for the eyes, the ears, or even erasing negative thoughts, which has a playback or runtime, if you will, of over 369 minutes, which is wild.
Yeah.
But it's, when it comes to frequencies, a lot of people just get stuck on, all right, this certain frequency, that certain frequency, but it's a whole array. There's certain, when you type in certain programs and certain frequencies, like the Scalar device that I have, you'll notice there's it'll say a particular set of numbers in terms of the frequency, and then it goes equal to another set of numbers. And what that represents is sweeping frequencies, meaning that at certain second intervals, it goes through different points of frequencies going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And that creates a different resonance in terms of what it does to the body. And that's why certain sets of sweeping frequencies do different things, such as either stimulate the pineal or stimulate the vagus nerve or stimulate the pancreas, if you will, and different organs in the body, et cetera, or even create certain things like colloidal gold, or you can even target vitamin deficiencies, if you will. And that has a whole array of different frequency sets and sweeps that goes back and forth at certain second intervals or minute intervals, which plays a huge factor in producing the effects they do.
Yeah. So that sort of leads to my next point, which is, does breath work have healing capabilities beyond mental health, physical health? I've seen, things with Wim Hof and other different people that, were at death's door, really. They had no other option but, good nutrition, breath work, ice baths. So, I mean, what sort of work have you done or do you know of that has helped with any sort of illnesses through breath work?
Oh man, they're all on my YouTube. all the testimonials are there. Even with a lady with sickle cell, that finally you could finally see her veins. That was a wild testimonial in itself. Even people with a deviated septum as well, tapping into the power of alchemy and breathwork, utilizing for that. Even people that have issues that can't even speak up for themselves, like in the workplace, which is super important, so things of that nature as well. In people with like mothers, when I work with mothers, there's more breast milk in their breasts as well for their child, because when you're breathing more efficiently, the blood starts producing and helping the mother to produce more milk. So yeah, a whole array of endless.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I've seen other things. I mean, I haven't tried myself, but DMT is in the body as well. And have you ever done breath work that releases the substance itself, or had any sort of trip-like experience through breath work?
Oh, yes, yeah. I have. Even at particular times, you don't have to hyperventilate to even get to that.
Yeah.
you don't. Honestly, even breathing at specific times around the 3 a.m. mark or the 9 to 11 p.m. mark, I definitely want to let people know that you can produce even more melatonin naturally instead of getting over prescription drugs and overdosing kids, which is a sad epidemic right now, which is so wild. So even doing breath work around those times help produce more natural DMT. And something to note, the style of breath work, that this embodies you're not going to have a crash later on. It's an interesting flow of high, if you will. It's not too overstimulating. You're also not going to have a seizure.
Yeah.
Like some of the, like Wim Hof, like some I've seen people have seizures, etc. Going to have a seizure in that way, because you're we're mainly using the nose as well. We don't do many breath holds whatsoever, but different styles. But again, it's about keeping that level of resonance throughout the day. And that's why it's a style of breath work that you can go do randomly throughout the day. That's what I encourage, more randomly versus just, hey, let me sit down here 1 hour and just focus on this. I encourage people, I push people, like, say, nah, try to do it as randomly as possible throughout the day, because that also helps simulate the mental strength, if you will, to deal with certain uncertainties when they arrive in your life. That's being real. It's like, take it for what it is instead of what it could be, in a sense.
Yeah, for sure.
And taking away that out of the equation.
Yeah, I mean, it's how to react in the right way to a situation. Some people see stress or something comes up and they react to it in a bad way, or desire or pleasure or things like that. I look at, like, I suppose I've been sort of the sit down, do it at that time. I'm very regimented in my morning routine. I work out, or I run, or I stretch. I stretch every day, and then at the end of it is sort of breathing, and then cold showers. So I look at it now, maybe I should just look at it like, well, but I think because I've done breath work, now if I find a moment of where something's getting tense or there's stress coming up, then it's a straight inhale. Like, you go to it more like that. So moving on from the breath, obviously you're a breatharian, which I just find amazing, really. I'm still trying to get my head around it. And just for those that don't know, would you just explain a little bit what the lifestyle of a breatharian is?
Yeah, I'm changing the name to biophotarian.
I'll go with that too.
Biophotons, because at the end of the day, everyone is somewhat of a breatharian, because everyone breathes, right? So,
yeah.
And then there's the other aspect. I like to say, well, do you put the breath first? And that's super important. Then you can finally really understand the aspect of breatharianism. It's more than just, quote unquote, not eating. It's about building the foundation of resonance, because it's different from just fasting. You are building a supplementation, if you will, that replaces your normal or your normal intake of what food would, quote unquote, give you. Dense food would give you. Now your food changes into light therapy. Your food changes into biophoton therapy, or sun gazing, or manipulating or shifting or harmonizing, if you will, with different breathing patterns to give you different stimulation of chemicals in the body to help sustain you. So yeah.
So do you I mean, did you start off this journey with fasting first? Like, how did you sort of transform? Obviously, you was in a sticky situation with a business partner. Then you went through the sort of process of the stress or whatever led you to breath work. But then what led you to, obviously breath work probably led you to this, but also, I mean, the transitional process of, in my head, thinking, okay, I mean, I can quite happily eat one meal a day, or fast for longer periods of time. But, in England, we pretty much have grey skies, so the solar energy might not be so good. But
there's biophotons everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah.
You are.
So
if there's a tree standing next to you, like, what do you think the tree is living on right now?
Yeah, of course. So how do you think that's more in the mind, that you can, once you believe it, you understand it, then the body will follow?
Oh, hands down, yes. Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Before my first ever breath session, my mentor, my Sifu, well, he had me fast for 2 weeks on liquids, and I've never done that long of a fast.
Yeah.
And then we got into the breath, the 2 hour breath session, which was super powerful. That opened a lot of things, and I could finally, after that, of course, I went back to eating. And then the more time I spent with him, the more he taught me, and the more I started decreasing to literally, it went to one solid meal a week to one solid meal a month, and then I just gave into liquids at a certain point.
Did you find any, any complications, any health problems, anything sort of through the process, or what should people look out for that they would have to do in order, to sustain themselves or do this transition? I think, how long is it that you've gone through the transition or been a breatharian or not eaten, I would say.
Yeah, so it took a span of 2 years to finally get to the point of just liquids in that aspect. But again, you have to build a foundation, which is either meditation, hence breathing, because when you stop eating dense foods, what you, you have to find. Also, you're gonna notice boost of energy. Thus, you're gonna have less sleep, which is practically normal. But it all depends on how you're breathing. If you're breathing sporadically, if you're a mouth breather, then you really need to change that. Hands, is when you are sleeping and you're breathing like that, and even people who quote unquote fast, you're increasing your chance of heart attack. It goes up by 30% in terms of sleep apnea and all different other sleeping disorders, etc. So breathing has such a huge part of shifting into this lifestyle, if you will, because now you're learning the aspect of breathing through. I like to say breathing through the life force of everything around you, not just you. And when you learn that aspect, that everything around you is living, moving, you're then harmonizing no matter where you go, versus just being isolated. Isolation in itself, it is, or solitude. Solitude is a more healthier term. Solitude, yes, is important here and there, but if you find yourself isolated, then something's not right. If you find uh, doing this path, or even fasting in general, rough or harsh, you're supposed to be having fun with it, even though it could be sometimes rough and harsh, if you will, at certain points, specifically with fasting in general. Yeah, for sure, you're going to have those days, but it's also important to realize and understand that if the journey isn't fun, then why are you doing it?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, in the sense of like how the body can absorb, what would you say is your main source of energy for yourself now on a day-to-day basis? Is it mainly obviously breath, but I mean, from that, what have you sort of told your mind that where you're pulling new energy from, that you don't need food anymore?
The main source is having fun with the breath. That's the main no, that is the main source. Like I said, the breath itself, it's a living entity. We live in matter. Even though there's nothing, or nothing is in front of us, but nothing is also something. It is matter. You can literally blow into a balloon and put it in nitrogen gas, and you'll still see particles come out of the balloon. What does that tell you? You're literally breathing out particles, and you're also inhaling particles as well. So the main thing is learning how to shift the filter to where every inhale is healing, every inhale is light, every inhale is abundance of energy, if you will.
Yeah, really interacting with it, I guess. And then, so do you think to evolve yourself from someone that has eaten for so long, and then do you think that what's your opinion on food, in the way, does it break down the body, or over time? Because that's something I've looked into, that food, if we're in a sort of running machine, like anything, if a car is driving constantly forever, it's going to eventually break down in different
Rust.
parts.
Yeah.
It's going to rust. So how I look at it is obviously not talking about junk food, processed food, or stuff like that, because that's obviously no good. But if we're talking about, good nutrition, vegetables, a healthy diet, basically, would you say that food is still breaking down the body over time, and that, someone with your lifestyle would live longer?
Maybe. Most
Time will
likely.
tell with that one, but
I'm praying for it, but that's not the main goal. I mean, the
no, of
main
course.
goal is to live happily and abundant in all aspects of life. So to answer your question, well, let's look at a turtle. Look at the turtle and how it breathes and how it eats as well, which is
I've got a pet tortoise.
Yeah.
He
they
takes
don't really
his
need
time, yo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just recording my breathwork album, and I did a long inhale, and I go to the producer. I'm like, hey, how long was that inhale? He's like, 1 minute and like 30 seconds. I was like, okay, all right, cool.
Yeah.
So it takes time to build overall. But to answer your question with the aspect of food, so my main thing is frequency nutrition. You also ask where, what's like the main source. It's mainly frequency. Like, we're all eating somewhat of a frequency, right? But how dense, how abundant is that particular frequency? When you eat something in a dense form and you go poop it out, what does that tell you? Your body only used some of it, not all of it.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So that should easily give you the aspect of like, wait a minute, I don't think my body's using everything I really eat. So what's really happening here? So what's really happening is your body, your DNA, your DNA itself is biophotonic. It resonates on light. That's why when you go out in the sun, stress hormones go down, etc. All the benefits you have when you're in the sun. When you're in fluorescent light, cortisol go up, stress hormones go up, artificial light. When you're in that spectrum, that should tell you are a light being. You're a crystallized light being, as science is now calling it, crystallized or crystalline light being, as we all are. So when it comes to frequency, we can dial into 528 hertz, 432, etc. But like I said, I always say this: what you do frequently becomes your frequency. So that in itself is its own frequency. And now you're learning how to take in certain frequencies and a different aspect. I challenge everyone out there to every time you eat, every time you drink something, play one of my subliminal breathwork music in the background for 30 days straight, and your relationship with food will change for the better, for sure.
Yeah.
All
of that. I mean, it does make sense to me. As much, I think it's just that, especially in England or the Western world, it's consumerism. Like there's more sweets than anything else, and they're all at the end of the till. So I look at it like it's a long time of programming in one sense to actually understand a completely other way of living is what sort of bounces back people. It's like, no, that's not really possible. So do you think that, this is a stage in your life now that you've chosen to take this? Do you think, I think we've kind of lost the human path in a sense, a natural human path, because it's more like career, marriage, divorce maybe, but like it's more like a path of a system in that trait rather than being in a body and what that body you should learn from that body is. Do you think with yourself that this stage now is going to expand to another stage, or are you happy with how you are now? Or
I'm just living in the moment as much as possible, and wherever it takes me, it'll take me.
Yeah, of course. So I mean, there's with sort of life after death or those sort of circumstances, I've seen, some with DMT, or they go to a certain realm or whatever. Would you say that, because not eating, your body must be a lighter body in a sense. Would you say that is something that is an evolution that a human body should take? And my point to that is, should a baby be eating, up to the age of like growth of 25, when a male or female stops kind of growing? Should you eat through those periods of your life and then transcend into someone that doesn't eat anymore and takes the energy? What would be that process?
The process would be feeding the baby the breast milk until the mother has no more breast milk.
Yeah.
That should be the natural process. And if more people were to do that, I think we'd probably see less obesity, because the stem cells and the energetic resonance, because the physical mother represents the mother of life, et cetera, right? She represents a frequency. So if you're training the baby all the way until, I think some mothers still have breast milk until even 13, or there's one lady on Oprah I saw was still breastfeeding her 20-year-old. So I mean, it's
that might not suit many people though. They might have to move out at 18.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what that represents, because there are some tribes in Africa I've seen that do that, and you'll notice they barely eat. They're mostly liquids, if anything, and they don't need much to survive, because low key they've been literally training themselves in that manner. And it's a very interesting, powerful resonance to understand how powerful the mother and the woman and what that energy really represents. So it all also boils down into the knowledge aspect. If we look at certain ancient Egypt practices in terms of cleansing and getting to that point of less food dependency, you can also see the jet pillar that was going through the ground, running electric resonance of energy. It's safe to say, even if you don't want to say that there was no electricity back then, etc., at least they understood if you stuck metal in the ground, you'd still get frequencies, etc. And what they would do, there's even a drawing out there on one of the hieroglyphs. When I went out there, you'll see the metal prong, the copper prong going into the back of the head, which is the softest point to the pineal gland. And that sticks going straight into the ground, into the earth, resonating frequency, energy, etc. And what were they doing? They were literally feeding energy from the earth into the body in that way.
Yeah. Egypt has always fascinated me, and especially sort of ancient civilizations. And it leads to sort of a question I had. Why would sort of the information that you found, or the information that we're all sort of looking for in a way now of how to live a better life or a healthier life in the system that we're placed in, and why would you think it's been suppressed? Or these Egyptian, what the Egyptians really were doing is so suppressed, it's so hard to find in certain senses.
Greed is one of them.
Yeah.
Greed. I think greed is what compelled, and when it comes to some of these technologies, that was somewhat lost, if you will, even down to the Greeks and the stuff that they built. I lost it on top of my head of what it's called. But tapping into that aspect, we look at the Great Floods. I think maybe the Great Floods had something to do with it, that wiped out lots of civilizations, etc., and also knowledge, going back to the aspect of the knowledge, right? But it's a beautiful thing that we're here today in the age of information, and now it's just applying some of this information back into our reality, down even to the aspect of urine therapy, with the Indians, and into their ancient hieroglyphs and their ancient Ayurvedic practices. Urine therapy was also in there. And now come to learn, we all technically been doing urine therapy 9 months in the womb. So
So what, like, just to stop you there, what is urine therapy? Because that I haven't
yeah,
heard of.
yeah, urine therapy is a consumption of your urine
Oh,
or
right,
your
okay.
urine or your plasma filtrate, as it's medically termed in the medical field. It's not a waste product whatsoever. It can be any healing properties, etc. And there's also the aspect of biophotonic resonance in there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you know who Dr. Sebi is, that's how Dr. Sebi first got into the holistic world. He went to a Mexican facility, met a Mexican doctor, and he fasted on urine. And that's how he gained his eyesight back, clearing all the mucus.
I've heard it can get rid
from his head.
Get rid of parasites as well.
Oh yeah. My first time drinking it, I had it in the bottle sitting there for about a good 2 weeks. And then I was reading, and then I was like looking at it. I'm like, all right, I'm drinking it. I drank it, went straight to the toilet, and that was the first time I've seen parasites come out.
Yeah, that must have been a bit scary. So you have to let it sit for a while, 2 weeks.
You don't have to. You can drink it. You can drink it fresh. You can mix it with your smoothies, or you can apply it topically. If you're taking any medication, I highly suggest applying it topically until you learn how to wean off certain medications, etc. There are people that do that.
Yeah. Okay. That one I might leave on the back burner for a little bit, but I should later on try it.
well, down. Even your saliva technically contains urea. So
yeah. So you're drinking it all day.
we're doing it one form or another, but the urine obviously it's more concentrated.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So going a little bit back, just while we're on the topic anyway of the Egyptians, the structure you have as a headpiece is a pyramid. So where has that kind of technology come from? I see, I haven't really seen it anywhere else, to be honest. It's something that is quite unique.
Yeah, so these they're not just metal plated. I know I have the light on.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see the difference in color, but
all right, okay.
The middle one is diamond plated. The top one is gold and copper, and the bottom is completely gold. And what that is, before they metal plated, they orgone plated. So orgone plating goes through electrolysis, where you dip the titanium plates into the water, giving it a positive and a negative charge at the same time, thus creating an orgone effect, also incorporating other metals in there as well before even plating it in general. So this would have a stronger effect than just plating a pyramid piece, etc., because this also represents, in my opinion, the Giza pyramids and how they're built with technically limestone. Once upon a time, the coating was more white, shiny, and of course they all had the top gold piece.
Yeah, I've seen
on top, on the capstone.
Yeah. So what does it do for you, for a human body to have on your head?
Yeah. So my neuroscientist friends, they've tested it themselves, and it puts you more into a theta brainwave state. That's of my favorite points of wearing it as well. The other points of wearing it is it helps with your electromagnetic field, protecting you from EMF radiations and stuff of that nature. There's a video I posted on my Instagram somewhere where I took the pyramid and put it in front of a light, and you could see going back and forth the EMF radiation go down when you place a pyramid over the light.
Yeah. That's mad. Yeah, so how I look at it is like a lot of people, my nan was into Reiki and, sort of showed me some of that work that she used to do, and crystals. And some people just, in a certain sense, will still look at crystals as just a rock. But what's the sort of connection between the energy that a crystal absorbs? Is it similar to the crown piece that you have in a sense? You know, if you're using different materials.
Yeah, very similar.
Mm.
I've seen. So this is produced by Dr. Fred Bell, who was a NASA scholar. He passed a couple of years ago from falling down the stairs.
Oh, okay.
Question mark.
Mm.
Yeah. So he's done some beautiful studies with laser technology, and when you point laser into crystals, some crystals will even hold maps. There's when you point, and it has to be a specific nanometer. I forgot on the top of my head. I think it's 560 to, I don't know the exact measurements on the top of my head, but it has to be a specific nanometer wavelength when you point it into the crystal. I have a paradigm necklace, and when I point in the paradigm necklace, it actually aligns with the stars. I was all the way up in North Florida, and the darkest of night, you could see the stars. It's really dark up there, less light pollution. So I point it in the paradigm necklace, and it literally points and aligns with all the stars.
Yeah,
that was visible. And with crystals, some crystals will even hold maps. I've seen pictures of crystals holding maps. And then he did an experiment where he saged the whole place, and then he got a whole bunch of lasers and pointed into the crystals, because when you're pointing the laser into the crystal, you'll see the crystal is more animated. You'll feel more resonance from the crystal as well, because again, the aspect of light holding information, right? So the light spectrum dialing the crystal to animate more and amplify. Some crystal will even hold maps, but there's even a particular picture that's very famous on the website. Just go to my website, alchemybreath.org/biohacking, lowercase b, and scroll all the way down to pyramids, and then go to the page, and then go to books, and Dr. Fred Bell's stuff is there. And there's a particular picture you'll see of this spirit literally coming out of the crystal, because when you sage the place and you have the light spectrum going, it resonates. The reflection coming off the crystal starts to resonate, and you'll start to see what's actually inside the crystal holding information. He describes it as the Akashic effect, or the Akashic records coming down to a more denser dimension of reality.
Yeah. And for those that don't know, to my understanding, the Akashic records is kind of a place you can download from? It's kind of like how we would call like the iCloud for Apple.
Yeah. Someone you could describe it as the iCloud of consciousness.
That's what I find funny, is we actually a lot of this, when you start looking into ancient civilizations and the technology that it's already existent. And then what I start to see is that we're actually going into a reality where we're just mimicking nature and trying to catch up with it, simulations and and games, and the iCloud and the internet and Wi-Fi.
Yeah, there's new technology out there that's turning air into food.
Yeah, I've seen that.
It's becoming a thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's also I've seen the thing is, these technologies even get suppressed, and that's how I look at it. It's like there's a guy in South Africa that was using the humidity from the air with a machine that would turn it into water, and then they just can't get funding, or it just doesn't happen. You never see it again.
And there's another guy in Texas that's doing the same thing. So
I've seen that guy as well. Yeah,
he's more of crowdfunding, and it's working. He's getting traction, which is beautiful. But even when he went to Flint, Michigan, apparently they vandalized his machine out there, which is unfortunate. But
I mean, making anything for free is pretty dangerous. You gotta be a warrior. So you mentioned a little bit about biohacking. So I mean, what is biohacking basically?
Well, biohacking, I like to use the word biohacking because it's a mainstream understanding. If I were to use something else, which is, I have tons of other words to use, but people resonate for some reason with biohacking, so I tend to use it. biohacking is literally just coming back to harmonious resonance with your biology. That's the most simplest way of putting it. Even when they would say the infrared light is a form of biohacking, and also the sun produces infrared at a high point when it's midday. The highest will produce infrared, but it's also beautiful to have the infrared as well, because no matter where you are in the wintertime, the infrared spectrum of the sun goes down no matter where you are. You could be in Africa, you could be here in Miami, and it'll be 80 degrees, but the infrared lighting apparently goes down dramatically during wintertime, because I guess the layer of the firmament, if you will, starts to have an effect.
So saying firmament there, then, what is your sort of take on, science's view that we're on a globe or a flat Earth? If you're looking,
when I look at a globe, when I look at the globe map, and if I were to put a helicopter, like a toy helicopter, where I'm looking, there's North America up here, and Australia is down here, and I have the helicopter. Like, how does the helicopter not fall off the globe? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But if you look at NATO, if you look at the UN, globe, that map actually makes more sense than the globe.
Yeah, I mean that there's a lot of maps that are more based on the flat Earth model that are around the world in some of the highest places, which I've seen.
Alaska, Antarctica. Antarctica has so many beautiful warm climates, even in Antarctica. A lot of people don't know that, but Antarctica has warm tropical places in Antarctica, and also hidden technologies that we're still scratching our heads trying to find out why. Just if you look at something called the blue ice, or
I saw that the other day.
Yeah, the blue ice.
That they studied it as well.
It'll melt in your hand, but there's no water. It just evaporates because it's so infused with so much oxygen. So these scientists have been trying to penetrate that wall, but when they try penetrating it, it just heals and closes so quickly.
Yeah, I saw that the other day, and then they called it sky ice or something like that.
Sky ice,
yeah, something like that. But then there's like Operation Fishbowl. There's loads of different things I've looked into where it's like they've tried to throw nukes up at the sky or to see if they can hit the ceiling and things like this. I just find through the CIA documents. So a little bit off topic there, but still, like, what is your kind of thoughts of what Earth is? If it's not a globe, it's not flat. I mean, obviously, through ancient civilizations, it seems they looked at it differently as well.
Yeah, there's so many ways of looking at it, but at the end of the day, it's how you perceive it in real time that is more ideal, in the sense of if I'm walking down the street, then I'm walking down the street.
Yeah, I do this a lot, like awareness. I do have a wandering mind. I like to find out what everything is, and then you just realize, well, everything's here and now anyway.
Exactly.
But where was I for half an hour? But it's true, because you do kind of go into that. Even that's why I think working out and breath work, and all this work you're doing is so important to people, because it puts you in the present moment. I mean, even when I'm running, I run through the woods and forest near me, and it's like you can't really explain that moment to other people, but you're very in sync with the time that you're doing it, and you do want to get back to it after a while, next day usually.
Yeah.
So the sort of other thing I know you do, I think I'm dyslexic, so I usually pronounce things differently to how they're spelt. But is it scalar or Scala?
Scalar.
Scalar. Yeah, so scalar frequency. I know you use some sort of mechanisms or machines that do this, as well as aura on photos. I've seen you do stuff like that. Could you explain a little bit further on those topics?
Yeah. So what scalar is, think of the two of the same frequencies coming together, canceling each other out, creating an impulse, right? Just like the pulse in your heart.
Mm.
So you can literally view scalar as another body, if you will, but scalar exists. Scalar is literally your auric field, your thoughts ride on scalar, and your energetic resonance is what created your body. Thus, you came from the aspect of scalar. So you can even call it a divine presence, a divine power, if you will. And what scalar devices in general do, they don't produce scalar, they just give you more access to what is already there. That's why scalar, it's you could say it's quantum, you could say it's instantaneous. There's no point A to point B. There's only just point A. That's how scalar works. So what we've been doing for the past year now, people from all over the world been sending in their pictures, an injury that they have, and we place it onto the scalar using also a biogeometric blueprint that we place over their picture. And then we place it on the scalar. And remotely, no matter where they are in the world, they're receiving certain healing frequencies to their body, or more harmonious frequencies, if you will, to their body. Hence, let's dive into the aspect of frequency nutrition. So with this scalar, there's over 40,000 plus different programs I can run. And some of them can even be colloidal gold, if you will, or even stem cell regeneration, etc. There's so many different ways of utilizing frequencies inside scalar. So what scalar does, it gives the body more access to harmonize with those frequencies versus just playing a frequency and then you feel a certain way. But scalar goes a little bit more deeper in that aspect, because some people may not even feel it physically, but mentally, spiritually, and over time, you start to realize things are really shifting fast. So scalar, when you have a scalar device, how I describe it is you're creating a scalar body, and the body harnesses those frequencies, and your mirror neurons pick up on that type of body and then reciprocates at a deeper level.
Right. Okay. And you can do this with someone there, or I've seen it can be done. It can pick up someone else from far away. How does that work?
Yeah, we can do it even with objects. I did a whole experiment live on Instagram as well. I took a whole bunch of screenshots of people's cars, and then I ran chemtrail detox and EMF detox as well on their cars. And also, what also happened as well, because we also were running different harmonious frequencies as well, their mileage improved, which is, I guess, super important around these times.
Yeah.
And then someone came on the next week, because I told people to come back and share their experiences. Someone came on the next week live and showed a whole range of the clouds was circling his car.
Mm.
And that showed that we're literally busting all the chemtrails.
Chemtrails.
That was up in the sky.
Yeah.
So there's the range of different things you can do with scalar is endless. Now we're at the point where if you own a farm, I'm helping out farmers where you can send in your picture for free. I'll do it for free with the subject scalar farm. My email is devon@alchemybreath.work, and send a picture of your soil or the whole farm in a picture. And we'll put that onto the scalar and run remote frequencies into the soil. We have 30 plus farmers giving powerful testimonials just in even 3 days already.
Yeah.
And there are some people like, man, I'm sleeping on the farm now. It feels so different here.
Yeah. I mean, soil is a big problem. I mean, we have the climate change agreement, which that name doesn't really spell out what it is, but it is that, everyone should protect the soil. And you still have a lot of countries not obviously signed to that agreement. And I think with, pesticides, a lot of farmers are mainly growing corn and soybean, which is just given back to animals to eat. So, and then they're not getting 3 to 4 year crop cycles either. It's usually 3 years, and then the soil goes bad, and then they have to wait a year because of what they're using. So I think that's, if frequency work or scalar work can be for that, I think it's in the times we're going towards, maybe trying to stay in the present, but you still have to look a little bit to the future just to know where you're going, I think. So it can work with objects, soil, nature. Basically, I suppose it's a part of nature, so it can interact with all parts. So you said there's 40,000 programs. How does that work?
Over 40. So the database has over 40,000 programs. One of the databases is Rife.
Yeah.
Which he was a founder of, one of the founding fathers of finding out how you can use frequencies to eradicate certain illnesses, etc. And his database is in there, along with also other facilities that have been already experimenting with different frequencies, etc.
Yeah. So have you, the person I've kind of stumbled across going into frequencies and back to sort of hemisync meditations is Robert Monroe. And he was, I think he had a radio station at the beginning, and then he developed the Monroe Institutions, which the CIA got involved with. And this is like the gateway process. Have you heard of that? So no. So basically, it's like 18 tapes. I've only managed to get to number 5 because it's just, but it leads you through resonant breathing, in through the nose and then out through the mouth, but with a humming noise from yourself, and then affirmations, and then it's basically how to put your body asleep. So have you dealt into astral projection or lucid dreaming? Is that something that you practice at all, or?
Yeah, I'm at the point where I can literally either go into deep connection with the body or astral or lucid dreaming if I wanted to.
Yeah. And does that take, a while, or not as in to get there, but you can literally just tap into that now?
Yeah, it's all about, again, using the breath. I like to say the breath resides in all dimensions of reality, because when you're dreaming, you are breathing. In your dream, you're breathing.
Yeah, of course.
Even when you're astral projecting, air kind of feels different, but it's still, you still feel that essence,
See, I've tried to do it for probably about a year, maybe or so, and I find, I don't know whether it's fear or whether it's like a feeling, but it's just I cannot sort of get my head or I cannot sort of experience being out of the body. It's like I get to a point, I feel that here is becoming quite, it's vibrating in a sense, and then also I have a tingle sensation across my body, and then I find the next day actually I look at it like, oh, I did experience something then, but when I'm in it, it's kind of like I'm not going really anywhere apart from my bedroom. So what do you feel would be sort of the process of where someone can, get to that state where you can easily tap into these environments?
One of the affirmations I like going to sleep is, I'm breathing, I'm breathing, I'm breathing, I'm breathing, I'm breathing. So that's one way of tapping into it. Another way is the eye breathing, where on your inhales, you're looking down. On your exhales, you're gazing up, looking up, doing that to sleep with your eyes closed, and doing that to sleep. Because when you're doing that, you're now harmonizing with the breath and also with the hippocampus, going back and forth, and how the energetic resonance of where the breath is going, you're giving more focus into that point, and you'll start to open certain channels within the brain.
Yeah. Do you feel you're going out of your body through astral projection, or you're going in?
No. So yeah, the way I personally project is a little bit different. In the aspect of projecting, it's more like echoing.
Okay.
Like instead of forcing out of the body, in the sense I'm echoing, like multiplying different variations of myself, not variations, but of the same of the same essence, to the point where I'm literally echoing. It's more like an echo effect. And then I feel like, all right, there's like a path that I'm leaving behind in terms of where I'm going. So it's not just me just detaching and going elsewhere. Because I have done that. I definitely have done that. But now I'm at the point where I like to echo, because I like to leave the trail behind. So when I want to go back, it's there. So it's consciously leaving like an energetic imprint for me to go back as well. And it feels like I'm not too detached from my body either, because I don't like forcefully like detaching.
Yeah. Do you think there's any sort of danger towards, completely detaching? Maybe you might not come back.
Oh yeah, I've read forums with people doing that and having nightmares afterwards, or developing sleeping disorders as well. There's like Reddits on that.
Yeah, I've also heard that, some people look at Reiki or these energies you could be pulling sort of dark energies. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, for sure. I do. And I feel like, that's why the breath in anything you do is super important, because if you can keep a purity of breath when you go into these practices or doing anything of this nature, if the breath is pure, then the practice becomes even more pure, if you will, or even the practitioner might start to feel a different way about doing certain things and shift another course of action. So I've humbly worked with Reiki masters, even Qigong masters, as well. It's a beautiful thing. Even older people, interacting with them and sharing what I know about the breath has, they definitely see why it's very important, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my nan, she lives in Spain, and I went and did a sort of 3-day kind of course with her in a sense. And even now, I kind of just put my hands, if I had a tummy ache or something like that, I'd put my hands there, and it's like, But every time she did it to me, I was sick. It brings it out. So then it got to a thing where I was like, I don't really want to do it today, Nan. It's a bit too much. I'm going to feel sick. So, but that may be just what needs to come out of that stage. I think sometimes it's hard to explain. So leading to the end of this, like my mind is blown from this conversation anyway, but what is your thoughts on like something that's fascinating me at the minute, and I keep seeing it around all the time, is aging. And like I've seen sort of Indians stories from the Eastern world that some people have lived to like 200, some people live to like 500. These sort of myths that you come by on the internet,
even thousands in Burma.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that? Is it like that? Obviously, the way of life in the Western world is not a great one in a lot of essences, I find. So do you think like the Eastern world has probably got it more tapped into ancient civilizations in the way that they might still have that knowledge, and maybe we're trying to find it in?
For sure. It's definitely lingering around, and most of these places that have sentience to, people living all the way to thousands years old, has less stress, which is another key factor when it comes to this world, the Western side.
Well, let's hope they don't worry about the past, because there'll be a lot of it behind. And my final question is what I usually ask. I ask every guest that comes on, and it's series 3 is based on what reality are you in? So the question to you is, what is reality to you?
What reality is to me? Reality is honoring life for what it is and not what it could be. And going back to that statement, you're honoring what the all that is, God, the universe, creator, however you want to describe it, Allah. You're honoring what it has given you. And when you honor that, you're also honoring that you are part of the co-creation as well. And taking what has given you and either harmonizing with it, transmuting it, or succumbing to it. And when that realization happens, you again have the responsibility in terms of reality and being either real with yourself or creating more illusions, hiding from what reality has given you. And when you honor reality for what it is, you now go in front of the passenger seat instead of the back seat to see the full window up front, to see where different paths may lead in terms of that reality.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best answer I've had so far. It's a very good take on it. Well, Devon, thank you so much for your time today.